Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining, and welcome back to another session on my Declassified Caribbean News channel. Now, Tucker Carlson, we're going to be looking at the topic today, Tucker Carlson and the ex-Freemason, what they got right and what they got wrong. Now, Tucker Carlson recently interviewed an ex-Freemason whose claims about Freemasonry spirituality and the unseen world have sparked intense debate. And this afternoon, we examine what was said, what holds up, and what requires deeper understanding. From a biblical and theological perspective, some critics make the argument that the Tower of Babel, that was found in Genesis 11, verse 1 to 9, represents humanity's attempt, rather, to build a unified system of power and achievement apart from God. The associated Freemasonry's use of architectural symbolisms and references to building and ideas of human moral improvement with what they see as a continuation of a man-centered approach. Some connect Freemasonry and or Masonic symbols and traditions to ancient mysteries, secret knowledge, or attempts to preserve hidden wisdom outside the biblical revelation. However, from a historical perspective, Freemasonry generally traced to, or it's traced to medieval European stoneman's guilds. The transformation of those craft guilds into speculative philosophical societies in the 1600s and 1700s. The creation of the first Grand Lodge in London in 1717, and that's what historically Freemasonry traces its institutional roots to European stonemasonry guilds, but some Christian commentators argue that its deeper spiritual systems of knowledge and the rebellion represented by the Tower of Babel. So this afternoon, we are going to examine these historical roots and what is Freemasonry now. What would we say is Freemasonry? Freemasonry is a fraternal organization that traces its origins to the craft guilds of medieval European stonemasons who built cathedrals and other major structures. These guilds use tools such as the square and compass as practical symbols of their trade. Modern Freemasonry emerged in England in the early 18th century. The formation of Premier Grand Lodge of England in London in 1717 is often considered the beginning of organized modern Freemasonry. It spread rapidly throughout Europe, North America, and other parts of the world. Freemasonry is organized into local groups called lodges and generally emphasizes moral self-improvement, charity and community service, brotherhood among members, and personal discipline and ethical conduct. Now, Freemasonry uses rituals, symbolism, and allegories drawn from the traditions of stonemasonry and biblical imagery, especially stories connected to King Solomon's temple. However, interpreters of these symbols vary widely among Masons and critics. Controversies around Freemasonry has interacted or attracted, I should say, controversy because its ceremonies and initiation rituals are private, and people always question the privacy among Freemasonry or among Freemasons. Some critics, especially from certain religious traditions, have viewed it as incompatible with their faith. Conspiracy theories have often portrayed Freemasonry as a hidden political or financial power network. Now, let us look at what some of what the interview was saying with between Tucker Carlson and the guest that was on his program. So I'm going to begin with that, share my screen with you, and let's begin with that interview, and then we can have our discussion that follows. Very important that we begin to do that. So we're going to look at that now and put that on the screen. Ex-Freemason here, and then we are going to discuss. So let me put that up on my screen, and it is here. And let me now turn up the volume. Oh, did I not? Sorry, I didn't put it on.
And you've been on this for a very long time. So let's just start as big as we can. What's the purpose of communing with the supernatural for leaders? Why do leaders do it?
I think there was maybe this is a quote or someone said this to me. There are non-powerful people who are Freemasons,
yes,
but there are no powerful people who are not Freemasons.
Freemasons.
If you think about the nature of an initiatory group that's been around in its current form for a few hundred years, since the 1700s, right, in the UK, and likewise in France, but they say its origin, or they believe that its origin precedes it to the Knights Templar, right, who were a very powerful order, as we know. From my understanding of the Templars, it's not the idea of like 9 knights showing up in the Middle East during the Crusades, right, to guard the roads, right? It was really more about excavating under the Temple of Solomon.
Yes,
that was what they were interested. Were the ancient
want to get
texts,
to the Well of Souls.
The Well of Souls, the ancient texts, the things that were written into like grimoires and hidden incantations, things that you could basically call upon the spiritual realm, because that's the lore of King Solomon. King Solomon, as we remember from the Bible, he had wisdom, and he was a powerful ruler over what was then Israel, but
richest man in the world.
Well, he had the gold, but why did he have the power? Was because he could call upon what they call genies, and he could command them with his ring, the Ring of Solomon, the Ring of Power. And that's what so the real lore of like Masonry, right, was that he had this builder, Hiram Abiff, who architected the temple, the Temple of Solomon, but they had jinn that they called upon to actually do the work and to build it. Now that's all metaphor.
And what are jinn?
Genies, what we would call genies in Aladdin's lamp. They are the beings. And so I went to Iran the first time was curiosity, but I went to go meet with some of these guys that communicate to them, to the other side. And I would talk to them about, what's going on in the world. And they would say, yeah, I mean, the jinn in Islamic lore is very similar to like angels and demons, or the watchers in the Book of Enoch, right?
Yes.
Who are not, they're both dark and light. Some serve God, some serve the dark side. And so the idea of like the power of Solomon was to be able to have a relationship and mastery. And some people say that he actually got overwhelmed by the power, and that's why he fell, right? He ended up with the love affair that sort of sank his rulership, because it's a very dangerous gambit once you start communing with that side. But I believe all the initiatory paths, Freemasonry is just one of them, the most famous one, lead you to that realm, to that understanding that there's spiritual forces invisible to us that are working through people in this world. And just because someone is a so-called Christian doesn't mean they're serving God. And just because someone is a Muslim doesn't mean they're serving the devil. That it's the same across the entire planet, that there are forces of dark and light working through every religion, every people, even through our own lifetime, our own souls. At any point when you grow up in Hollywood or whatnot, you realize like it does seem that people can sell their souls and maybe not even be aware of it. Because to me, it's not Satanism is like, can be incantations, it can be blood sacrifices and rituals. It can also just be worship of the material realm.
Yes.
Right? So when you get into that realm of like, oh, I want power, I want worldly power, I think that's the satanic path. They don't think of it as such, but materialism at its heart is worship of the earth, and that's why people talk about the earth, like
So that's a very interesting thought that he's making to open the program, which we shall also look at other elements of what he's saying. But notice that they opened the program, that's Dr. Carlson, with this gentleman, who they are claiming is an ex-Freemason. But the fact is that they're suggesting that the world is not as materialistic as we see it. Right? There is a spiritual realm to the world, and that the world is more evil than people can ever imagine. Now, in recent times, we're hearing about, this guy there, the one that was, Epstein, right? Epstein and all these people And the fact that we are hearing frequently about child sacrifices of children, being sacrificed by demons or by wicked people. And we really wonder, but he's suggesting here that yes, these things are practiced in Freemasonry. Ritualistic practices of sacrifice or sacrifices are practiced in Freemasonry. And no wonder we are seeing a world in which the news media present a world that is normal, and they will present 2 or 3 persons like Epstein and say these persons are abnormal, but it is normal in that world. In the world of Freemasonry, sacrifices and these things are normal. And that's what he's saying. And Tucker Carlson are also saying that when we look at Freemasonry, we think that it is just a secret society, a secret organization, but it is a religion unto itself. And that, I think, that was a very good way of starting out the program. Let's listen to some of what he continues to share with Tucker Carlson, because this is a very interesting interview that Tucker Carlson had with him. There were some errors in it, and we want to look at some of the errors in what that he's talking about and begin to have our critical discourse. All right, so let me turn up back the volume.
Kind of Lucifer's domain, right? Because if you start worshiping money and yourself, your own ego, well, you've lost sight of the transcendent power of God.
There's no question about that. There's no question. And I think all of us experience that in our own lives. But just to back to what you initially said about the Masons, so we're about 100 feet from a Masonic Lodge. They're all over rural America. Yeah. They're kind of a vestige of the past. This is how I think of them. A bunch of elderly guys with ceremonial swords.
Yeah.
Telling stories.
I have one.
You have one. I have one right over there from that lodge. You don't think of them as a threat or even a meaningful player in current events. But then I should say I don't know much about it.
Yeah.
I don't. So at all. You joined the Masons. Why did you do that, and what was it like?
So it was a journey of initiation, I think, that I was going through in that time, right out of college. Because, in my college years, I started getting deep into studying history. And even in the Procopius was writing the history of Justinian, right? The Roman emperor, Byzantine emperor. And he described him as a shape-shifting demon, basically, in that book, in The Secret History. And that was buried for a long time. And again, there's all types of histories that King James was it James's Bible, but he also wrote demonology book, right? I mean, this was the way that the world was perceived and understood for centuries, as we know.
As a battleground between dark and light.
Yeah, I mean, as forces that were unseen. I mean, Socrates talked about his daemon, like but be called genius. But they say, like, in the old world, there's a theory that when Homer is writing about the Iliad and about all these different gods having a play in human life, a lot of people believe that we were in communication more readily with beings, right, unseen beings, and it may have been a real factor in our consciousness back then. And then we obviously we get to this place of the Enlightenment when all of that becomes relegated, and we say, oh, that's all hocus pocus and not real. We can only focus on the physical realm. But you can't understand how life begins through the physical realm alone. You can't understand how the universe is formed.
No.
Right? I mean, how does a Big Bang start? It just happens. Okay.
Spontaneous bang.
Time travel. I mean, how does it happen? How does it actually begin? Exactly, from what? And how does life begin? So I think a lot of the materialists, actually, you could say, like, people say Darwin and whatnot, are essentially serving the dark side, because they're saying there's nothing outside the material realm. This is all that exists, and everything, well, actually all we're interfacing with is our own minds,
yes,
our own perceptions. And so when they want us to believe, a very simplified version of reality, spontaneous evolution, random changes, right? Take away anything spiritual. I think that serves the dark side, in a sense.
So that is what he's suggesting here, that their plan is to take away everything that is spiritual so that they can leave you empty, and then they add the spiritual element that they want to add for you to have, for you to be filled with. So we have to understand that this is something that is just, not important for us to understand, because this is the reality. And many of our leaders are Freemasons, and we've got to understand where this is coming from, and the fact where this organization, the history of it, and how it functions, and what role it plays in our world today. Now, let us look at the history of the Freemasonry in the United States, all right? We're going to look at the history of Freemasonry in the United States and move right up to the Caribbean, right? Because we have Freemasonry here too in the Caribbean.
Philosophy and liberty and fraternity, basically like a brotherhood, and it really resonated in this colonial American period. And these same ideas would later inspire the actual American Revolution. So when colonists decided to break away from Britain and create their own country, the Freemasons and sort of the Freemasonic philosophy actually played somewhat of a role in making that happen. And you can see their influence in the founding documents and even the symbols of the United States. I mean, look at the Great Seal of the United States, which you can see if you have a dollar bill in your pocket. It has several symbols that people associate with Freemasonry. Of course, you have the all-seeing eye at the top of the pyramid, and the pyramid itself is unfinished. But one thing is certain, Freemasonry is deeply woven into the fabric of early American society. I've even heard certain theories that, the pyramid is sort of the symbol of ancient building, ancient wisdom that the Freemasons claim that they have, possession of. And furthermore, the unfinished nature of it shows that the Freemasons are constantly working, they're constantly building.
So is it no wonder that Freemasonry, that, our global elites are, many of them are linked, affiliated with that organization, that they think that they have superior knowledge and that they understand the world more than we do. And that is why they're foisting on their understanding of the world, whether through wars or financial, policies. They think that they know better than the rest of us. And that is why they're leading us to a totalitarian worldview or perspective. Let us continue now with other parts of Freemasonry that we need to understand, because there are lots of things I have here interesting lined up for us to see the connection between Freemasonry and what is happening now. Okay, so let us look at Freemasonry and Satanism, because it's a demonic institution and we have to call a spade a spade. All right, so let's go to that Freemason and what it is really. It's a demonic organization.
Freemasonic order. And he himself was a 33rd degree Mason. He showed me his little certificate he got. He also told me that if he ever felt like we were in deep spiritual trouble, that I should join the Mormon church, because it was a church that had been started by witches, for witches, that we could hang out in and pretend to be nice. The image of the Mormon church. They're straight, nice, wonderful, all-American people with happy families and white picket fences and, all of that. But secretly, they believe almost the same doctrines that witches believe. And we can get into that if you want. But anyhow, so he gave us that advice. Again, this is in the early 70s. So I joined the Masonic Lodge, became a Master Mason at the same time as I was a Satanist and a witch. And I got really, I sold my soul to the devil. That's how deep I got into this stuff.
Yeah.
Basically, Masonry is an antichrist thing. It claims it's not religious, but it is. And the problem is, if you drill down into this deep enough and read the books that are written by people like Albert Pike, like Albert Mackey, Arthur Edward Waite. These are three prominent scholars of 19th century, early 20th century Masonry. And all of them were occultists.
Can you talk about the similarities, if there are some, and what are they between Freemasonry and Mormonism?
Well, first of all, if you go to Temple Square, you'll see Masonic handshakes. You'll see the all-seeing eye. You'll see the sun, the moon, the stars. There's no crosses on the Mormon temple. There's nothing Christian on the outside of the Mormon temple. When you get inside the temple, most of the similarities are the fact you go through three levels. And in each level, you're taught hand signs and handshakes and things that are all very similar to Masonic stuff. And you are made to swear an oath. And when in the first level, which I think it's been ages since I've gone through all of this, you put your hand to your throat and go like this, the same as you do in the entered apprentice degree of the Masonic Lodge. In the third level, you are taught another set of secret handshakes, and then you're instructed, and this is where it gets really Masonic, you're instructed to go up, and they have this veil, which they say is like the veil in Solomon's temple. So you've got Masonic markings. You have a square and a compass on your chest. You have another marking on your navel and another Masonic marking on your knee. Okay. These same markings are on the veil, but they're stitched so they're holes. And there's a guy on the other side of the veil that you can't see who represents Heavenly Father. He represents God. And you go up to this guy and you're instructed, you put your hand through the veil, and this is called the 5 points of fellowship. And this is right out of Masonry and right out of witchcraft. Gardnerian, Alexandrian witchcraft and Masonry and Mormonism all have these 5 points. And the 5 points of fellowship are foot to foot, knee to knee, hand to back, breast to breast, and mouth to ear. I think I got that right. And anyhow, so you're embracing this unknown guy through this veil, and he whispers to you the secret name of the celestial kingdom. It's health in the navel, marrow in the bones, strength in the loins and in the sinews, power in the priesthood be upon me and my posterity for all generations of time and all eternity. Now, that might sound reasonably benign, except for the fact that it's almost word for word out of the satanic grimoire. It's a satanic incantation.
Okay, so that is important because we need to understand the philosophy of Freemasonry. And I think that's exactly what he has just done for us. He has explained to us that this is a Luciferian satanic organization, and that most of our leaders, whether they're financial leaders, even spiritual leaders, and political leaders, are linked with Freemasonry. And he has told us that these people are not people that are good, decent, upright people as they present to us. They say that it's a brotherhood, it's a fraternity of brotherhood, and they do a lot of philanthropic work also. But doing good things does not mean, therefore, that they do not also do evil stuff. And that is where many people are deceived and also fooled by Freemasonry and their philanthropic efforts. But let's continue to look at some other. Donald Trump. Is Donald Trump a Freemason rather, not Freemasonry, but Freemason? You'll be surprised the people
fight so hard against all the topics that we're being shown, especially when it comes to topics like the CIA and the Freemasons. Even Donald Trump has left us so many clues over the last few years. It's the Freemasons that control this entire operation. The military leave the number 33 whenever there's a war conflict around the world. Freemasons operate in the movies and leave us clues in plain sight. And even Donald Trump recently, when he had King Charles visit him, he left us more clues. Remember when he had the bees? And then the White House posted this image, Donald Trump, the beekeeper. Beekeeping is all part of Freemasonry. It says the symbolism of the beehive. The beehive stands as an emblem in Freemasonry, teaching valuable lessons in industry, unity, and personal growth. Beyond its natural wonder, the beehive displays Masonic values, serving as a reminder to a fulfilling life of service, harmony, and self-improvement. So if we go back to the image of the beekeeper, Donald Trump, look what it says. Restore order, protect the nation. Order out of chaos. That number again, 33. Remember when Charlie Kirk died in that hoax? And Donald Trump did a speech a few days after. Listen to what he said.
I got to know him very well and saw immediately that Charlie was actually a master builder of people.
A master builder. Freemason. And even Charlie Kirk left us clues at that shooting. Look at the hats. 47 free hats. 4 plus 7 is 11 times 3 is 33. And people fight against the Freemasons, know they're all evil. Well, Donald Trump keeps showing us Mount Rushmore. He shared this one. It says, things are moving along nicely for America's 250th birthday in July. There's another one of Donald Trump with his face in a position where it looks like he's going to have that carved on the rock. Well, look at the other people on Mount Rushmore, all linked with the Freemasons. George Washington, the 6-star general, 250 years ago when this operation took place, the general, Freemason. Theodore Roosevelt, an active Mason. Thomas Jefferson, historically reputed to have a member of the renowned lodge of the Nine Sisters in Paris. And then you got Abraham Lincoln, which is the exception. So 3 of the 4 Freemasons on Mount Rushmore. Well, the person who actually made Mount Rushmore was Gutzon Borglum, and he was an active and dedicated Freemason. And you can keep going through history. Benjamin Franklin, the Constitution, which has got us to this point here. Harry Truman, Freemason. General Flynn served for 33 years. And you start seeing that number 33 everywhere. It's the Freemasons leaving the clues in plain sight. It's the Freemasons that control this entire operation. And it's the Freemasons that have been exposing and taking down this evil for a very, very long time. So people have to let go of their fighting because this is all there for people to see. They just do not want to accept it.
Now, can you imagine that people are so deceived that they are joining Donald Trump or they're joining Joseph Biden or the person on the right and the left? And many don't understand that all of these people are working together because they are part of the same fraternal organization. But people are not so much concerned because they like to join sides, right? And then when they're deceived, they realize that all of these individuals are working on the same side. Now, let us look at some other popular guys that you're going to be so amazed of some of the people, from celebrities to sports personalities to musicians. All of them are Freemasons. Let's look at some of the Black American Freemason celebrities, right, that we often don't associate with Freemasonry.
Celebrities. Masons. T.D. Jakes. Freemason. P. Diddy. Freemason. Rick Ross, Freemason. LeBron James, Freemason. Look at the ritual that he does before his game, every game. Every game. And people thought like, oh, that's just so cool. But the whole pre-game ritual is demonic. Jay-Z, Freemason. Michael Jordan, Freemason. Busta Rhymes. French Montana, Freemason. Look at this. Then got engaged to some lady, some princess or whatever you want to say. And look at the hand gesture that he is throwing up in that picture. All these people are demonic, bro. And they are not serving the God that you serve. They're not giving glory to Jesus Christ. These are just a few celebrities that you didn't know. Some of y'all may have known, but a lot of y'all don't even know it. It's only part 1. Like, comment, repost, and let me know in the comments if y'all want me to do a part 2. But so hey, don't be deceived.
So we are living in actually we're living in an evil world, right? Where the world is controlled by the occult. This world is not controlled by what you see, but so much of what you can't see. And our leaders are so connected to evil that is why we cannot get any truth. That is why we're seeing wars upon wars, and people are presenting to us as if they want to stop the wars, they want peace, but at the same time, they're dealing with some demonic forces that we understand do not want peace. In fact, they're here to destroy our very lives, our existence, or peace, because they are part of a system that requires sacrifice, that requires evil, that is beyond human comprehension, and that is what our politicians and our leaders are engaged in. Something that we have to grapple with, and many of our society, many of the citizens of our society or societies do not wish to grapple with. Now, let's look at what is Freemasonry doing with voodoo. Right, this guy was unpacking some of the situation right there in Haiti with this gangster, the leader, who they say is
stick with me.
a menace to society. Look at what he's saying
here. You know, the cannibal gang leader from Haiti, who has been seen multiple times in multiple pictures with this Masonic necklace on. Yep, and a lot of you guys said stuff like maybe he ate him, or like what you said up here, could have gotten it from a victim. I was like, yeah, that's valid. And then it really got me going down that rabbit hole. So I started to ask myself, you know, did he eat a Freemason? You know, did he take someone's necklace? He doesn't know what it is. And come to find out, it uncovered a really weird and dark connection between Freemasonry and voodoo. Yep, Haitian voodoo. So a little bit more digging into Haitian voodoo and Freemasonry, I found out that basically voodoo and Freemasonry in Haiti are basically one and the same thing, and it gets really, really weird. Well, it all starts in France. The French ended up colonizing Haiti and basically moved there, settled in, and started Masonic lodges. They were branches of the Scottish Rite of France. So basically, Freemasonry has been in Haiti since the 1700s. As a matter of fact, the man who led the slave rebellion and the first president of Haiti, you know, way back in the 1800s, they were both Freemasons. The Masonic lodges in Haiti openly admitted free black men. After the French occupation of Haiti, voodoo and Freemasonry kind of became more and more entwined together, because a lot of men would talk about voodoo practices in their lodges, and they would also bring some of those symbols into voodoo. So they kind of intertwined with each other. You can see it in symbols like this, you know, an all-seeing eye. This is actually a voodoo symbol, you know, something like this. And of course, you got your pentagrams, the skull, the sword. You know, these are the hourglass of time. Those are all Masonic symbols. Then you have your square and compass right here. Also, you know, the hat, the master's hat. As a matter of fact, they actually call God the Grand Master, and their priests do an elaborate Masonic handshake when they open a meeting. This voodoo symbol right here is actually the symbol of a voodoo god, little g god. His name is the Freemason Baron Samedi. He's a god who dwells, I guess, in the invisible voodoo realm, and he's known for outrageous behavior, swearing, and continuously making filthy jokes. I guess that's what this guy is right here. You notice a lot of Freemason symbolism. Look, there's a square and compass there. The top hat, of course, the skull, the cane, tubal cane, get it? Pretty neat. So I think that answers the question of, did he get the square and compass off of a victim? Did he eat the victim? Or, you know, was it actually his? From the history of voodoo and Freemasonry, I can pretty safely say it's his, and it most likely is a symbol of that Freemason baron.
Okay, so interesting that you would have Cherizer, right, who is suggested to be an enemy of the United States because of his involvement with the gangs of Haiti. He's a leader of the gangs, and yet still he's connected to Freemasonry. So he's one of President Donald Trump's brothers, as it were. And this is the strange thing about what is happening in the world. In this world, we think things are not connected, that they're disjointed, and that you have enemies. The news media present to us as if these people are enemies of each other, when what they're doing actually is uniting against us, the people. And this is something that we have to really ponder and to reflect on. But many of us like to take sides. We don't like to examine the system, because this is a Babylonian system. Freemasonry is coming from Babylon. It's one of the religions of Babylon. And that's what we have to understand. And the entire system is built on that false Babylonian system, the same political system that you and I are actually looking at and we are part of in our modern world. Now, we're going to look at some other clippings of I think I've shown you some others in terms of, let us look at this famous personality here, Vibes Cartel. And he is going to talk about his, perhaps...
Which, all right, a lot of people say Vibes Cartel sell his soul to the devil. I'd like to know how the selling of one's soul to the devil go. Like, if you put out an ad in the Gleaner saying soul for sale, good condition, you know what I mean, and the devil contacts you, he writes a check or he gives you a manager's check and you change it. I want to know how that goes because that is news to me. I don't know how somebody can sell his soul to the devil.
Okay.
Does the devil have a bank account?
But are you a member of a group of Freemasonry?
No, I'm not a member of any group of Freemasons, but what is Freemasonry? Nothing is wrong with Freemasonry.
Okay.
Masons build the earth. That's why if you look on a Freemason ring, you see the compass and the square, because that is what build the earth. The earth is built from lines and circles.
Do you believe in God?
Vibes Cartel is a spiritual person. I'm not a religious person. So when you say believe in God, if you mean Jesus, I'm not a religious person like that.
God in the context of Christendom, of Christianity?
No, I don't believe in Christianity. I don't believe in Buddhism. I don't believe in Islam. Because to me, religion is division. It's just one more thing to divide people. Religious wars are the most violent wars in history. And it can be proven with even the recent 9/11 attacks in New York City. That is a religious war.
Yet still, Freemasonry is religious. But he's saying here that he's not religious and religious wars have cost a lot of lives, which is true. But so are political wars, and the political wars are also religious wars. And that is what we have to understand, because these fraternities to which our politicians belong and our celebrities and the powers that be are in fact spiritual religious fraternities. But he's not declaring that. And when you look at Vibes Cartel and the fact that he has gotten away with the crimes that he had allegedly committed, and the fact that he was able to move from Jamaica and seamlessly enter the United States society, it shows you that he is connected. And one of the reasons why he's connected is because of his Freemasonry association. And that is what we have to understand, that these organizations are not just there because they are there and people want to feel important. They play a decisive role in terms of what they are trying to engineer this world into their own image, which will be there for the depopulation of the world. And what they're doing, they're destroying the values of modern society, of modern civilization, and trying to make the society into their own image. And that is what is happening. So whether it's Jay-Z, or whether it's Vibes Cartel, or whether it's the many celebrities that you tend to admire and you worship and you adore, many of them are connected to these nefarious organizations. Just wanted to make that clear to you so that you can begin to think for yourselves and stop being empty-brained and empty-minded. Now, we have, I have another thing of the founding of the United States on the values of Freemasonry. But before I do that, let's look at the origin of secret societies. I think that Walter White is giving us a very important knowledge and background of secret societies.
That's mainly the occult symbolism that is used by the Jesuit order. Now let's go to the secret societies. We've discussed some of them already. I've shown this a few times already. That the ancient mystery religion comes from Babylon, and that the high priest of Babylon, that priesthood has been passed down through the ages and is embodied in Roman Catholicism today. Remember that lecture, The Wine of Babylon. And the teaching of occultism is Kabbalism. Kabbalism enthrones Osiris as God. Gnosticism was added and is basically for the Christian era, starts with Simon Magus, where you have the immortality of the soul issue coming in. And this secret occult Luciferian religion, complete with its Luciferian initiations, often sexual initiations or sacrificial initiations, complete as it was in the high places. Look at the lecture on the archaeology is still enacted today in the world. And whether it is on the dark side or the light side doesn't really matter. Then you have the Knights Templars. The Knights Templars were an order, a very interesting order, that were very prominent in the Crusades. And they were the ones who spent their time in Jerusalem, and they were very, very wealthy. They owned huge tracts of land all over the world. They had banks, they had the money in the world. That was the most prominent papal organization. And the Knights Templars had dealings also with the Islamic groups. And the Knights Templars were actually put to an end when the King of France arrested the main man, or the leader of the Knights Templars, who was Desmalloy. And Desmalloy was burnt at the stake for his atrocities. What they had to do, and the papacy was asked to investigate it, they tried to postpone it many, many times. The Knights Templars were to become initiated by spitting on the cross and trampling on the cross, rejecting Jesus Christ, and by partaking in the vilest of all ceremonies of initiation, which included sodomy and all kinds of things like that, and they were sworn allegiance to Lucifer. Well, when they were banned, their order, their occult knowledge, was transferred to the Rosicrucians, which is an occult organization, and from there to Freemasonry and the Illuminati. This is now according to Gary H. Carr, and the Theosophical Society, many of the cults of the 1800s, and then, of course, the Council of Churches, the international banking, and all of these are controlled by Freemasonry. Now, these here are Roman Catholic orders. In fact, they begin over there, they work their way through here. This organization, when the Knights Templars were banned, they found protection under the King of Spain, for example, and soon this order rose. And this is the occult arm of this famous order. There's one missing over here, and that's the Jesuit order, which underlying all of these is the real one that carries the military arm, let's say, of all of them, carrying it forward and doing the work of those that are in control. Now, if you want to know where all this comes from, whether I've sucked it all out of my thumb, here is a list of references which I will leave there for a while. These are, some of them are very, very authoritative. Some of them are a little bit more popular, but still very good. Hidden Secrets of the Eastern Stars, an excellent book by Dr. Kathy Burns. A One World Order is Coming, also by Dr. Kathy Burns. And then there are a number of those which come from Johannes Rothkranz, and these are German books. Of course, Masonry is very strong in Germany. And there are many, many which are Masonic themselves. Sieg der Vernunft, Johann Mahler, The Victory of Those That Are Sensible, and Secret History of the Jesuits, Die Freimaurer, Arbeit am rauen Stein mit Hammer und Zirkel und Winkelmaß. This is a German book, about the Freemasons, and it's a Freemason book, very interesting to read if you wanted to, but I wouldn't suggest it. You have to page through pages and pages and pages of absolute drivel to get to something useful. Secret societies and their movements. So lots and lots of references. And putting the puzzle together, let's have a look at it. Out of Babylon, you had Kabbalism. Out of Kabbalism, you had Gnosticism added, and the Essenes were prominent in that. Now, Gnosticism was founded by Simon Magus, who, according to Eliphas Levi, who is one of the great occultists of modern times and part of Freemasonry, he became a sorcerer to Nero, and this stands in History de Magi, page 189. Out of these came the Templars. They were then the true bearers of the knowledge of Lucifer. And all the occult knowledge that was derived from Babylon and then via the Egyptians. And they sought the knowledge of how to control minds and have the same power as Tutmosis III had when he confronted Moses. Now the Templars, they themselves had access and were infiltrated and used collectively the information of the Islamic societies. There were the Ismailis, the Carmatites, the Fatimites, the Druzes, and the Assassins. All of these are one and the same. They're one and the same. They're a fused occult society with one goal: to unite the whole world once more under the supreme rulership of Lucifer. Okay. During the time when Israel was taken out of Egypt, there was a slight hiccup when Egypt almost lost its religion. They wiped that piece out, and by the time of Ramesses, they were back in control, and that is what they would like us to believe. Now, they want that same control on a worldwide basis, and the Templars were the ones that had the power and the might and the money to do it. And they were highly respected as an order of Christianity until it was revealed that they were the vilest of Luciferians under de Molloy. And then, when they were disbanded, the Rosicrucians and the Jesuits, they were the ones that were to carry the flag of Lucifer. And the Jesuits are the instigators and the creators of Freemasonry. They are Freemasonry. Let me have a look at the Rosicrucian order. The rose is a symbol of Lucifer. That doesn't mean that I don't like roses. And I don't give a rose occasionally to my wife, of course. Why not? He didn't create it. The Lord created the rose. It's his worries if he wants to use it as his symbol. To me, it's a rose. Here is the occult symbolism of the Rosicrucian order. You have the pillars. You'll see the cross over there. That is, of course, the even-sided cross, the black and white squares, just as we had it in Catholicism. And here is one of the worshipful masters with his apron. The apron, by the way, replaces the fig leaf. It is the fig leaf. It is man's own righteousness, and man is responsible for himself and himself alone. Adam Weishaupt, he's the father of Jacobinism. He's the Jesuit doctor of papal canon law at the prestigious Ingolstadt University in Bavaria, and he is the one who founded the Illuminati. Now, the Illuminati is nothing other than the occult elite controlling the rest of Freemasonry. That's what it is. But we are told in the stories that he was an apostate Jesuit. No. He was not an apostate Jesuit. He was doing a great job for the Vatican at Ingolstadt University. Masonry and the Illuminati. On July 16, 1782, at the Congress of Wilhelmsbad near the city of Hanau in Hesse-Kassel, it was initiated by Ferdinand, Duke of Brunswick, Grand Master of the Order of Strict Observance. This comes from Albert Mackey, Encyclopedia of Freemasonry, page 1006. So in other words, according to their very own encyclopedia, Freemasonry and the Illuminati are one and the same organization.
Okay, so we are seeing that the world is more interlinked and interconnected than we can imagine. And some of us are waiting to see what Trump is going to do next, or the next president or prime minister of the Caribbean, what are they going to do next? But if you understand the system on which they operate, then you don't have to question that, because you can see what these organizations are all about. And that is why you have to understand history. You have to understand a little about their cult. I'm not saying you should dabble in it now, because if you dabble in it, you're going to realize that you are going to be destroyed. However, you must understand what Freemasonry is, what the Illuminati stands for, what the Jesuit order stands for, and how they play a role in shaping modern society, the wars in which we are engaged, the financial system that permeates the globe. Because if you don't understand the system, then you are going to fall for deception. And then you are going to be looking at a personality and thinking that, wow, Charizer in Haiti is different. He's opposed to Trump, when he's not. When he's not. But the media is playing that game, and you believe it. You believe what you're seeing because that is what you see. Now, notice that the guest on Tucker Carlson's program said this world is not only materialistic, but it is very spiritual. The world in which we live is highly spiritual, and that is what we have to understand. And people are connected by evil. Okay, now let's look at some of the other presidents who are Freemasonry, and you'll be surprised at some of them who you might not have thought about. All right, so let's got some presidents in both in the United States and world presidents and prime ministers who might
be some political leaders in the United States, and I'm just quoting from various sources and web pages. There will be different ones here, so you can check it out for yourself, to show you just who's control at the moment. We'll just run through them quickly and see what degrees they are. Bill Clinton, 33 degree. Newt Gingrich, 33 degree. Bob Dole, 33 degree. Jack Kemp, 33 degree. Storm Thurmond, 33 degree. Colin Powell, 33 degree. Jesse Helms, 33 degree. Barry Goldwater, 33 degree. Al Gore, probably 33 degree. Then another one over here, another one, James Monroe, Andrew Johnson, James Garfield, McKinley, Roosevelt, of course, William Taft, Franklin Roosevelt, Harding, Lyndon Johnson, Gerald Ford, Ronald Reagan, George Bush, all of them, Yitzhak Rabin, Yasser Arafat, Prince Philip, Duke of Kent, many others. Here's another source. Saddam Hussein, that's interesting. We'll have to come to him, 33 degree Freemason. Tony Blair, 33 degree. Gerhard Schröder, Prime Minister of Germany, if you like, President, 33 degree. Benjamin Netanyahu, 33. Yasser Arafat, 33 degree. Ronald Reagan, Gorbachev, Helmut Kohl, Shimon Peres. Helmut Kohl is also a committee of 300. Francois Mitterrand, 33, was Grand Orient Lodge, of course. Yitzhak Rabin, Willy Brandt, all of these old ones were Freemasons. Some more. Joseph Stalin. He was Illuminati. He was a member of the Grand Orient Lodge. Leon Trotsky, Grand Orient Lodge. Kissinger is a member committee of 300. J. Edgar Hoover, 33. Cecil John Rhodes, Aleister Crowley. Walt Disney was a 33 degree Freemason. Olive Palm, Al Gore, Tony Blair, Joseph Mengele. That's interesting. That's the mass murderer of the Nazis. He was Illuminati. Robert McNamara. You name it. They're all there. Billy Graham. Oops, sorry. Let's move on. Colonel John Glenn, Buzz Aldrin, everyone who's ever been up in space has to be a Freemason of the highest degrees. Edgar Mitchell, all the way through, Francis Bacon, Lord David Owen, all the negotiators, Richard Halbrook. I'm just running through some of them. Alan Greensprang, Peter Wallenberger, Queen Elizabeth is the queen of the Bilderbergers. Prince Philip, Queen Beatrix, she's the committee of 300. Prince Bernard of the Netherlands, committee of 300. And so we go on and on and on and on. Ted Kennedy, Rockefeller, David Rockefeller, Teng Hui, Baron von Rothschild. Hillary Clinton is 6 grand dame. She's a very high Freemason. Albert Pike, of course, you know, Bertrand Russell, Otto von Habsburg, Weishaupt, all the way back.
Okay, so we're seeing again that these guys are connected, that they are joined together by a fraternal organization. It's almost like it's a church, right? Freemasonry is a church. And that is, so if it's an international, it's a global organization. So whether you're in Iraq or you're in Iran or you're in Europe or you're in Africa or the United States and or Haiti or Jamaica or Barbados, they're all connected to this organization. And that is why they defend each other. And sometimes they fight against each other too, because, you know, their society is quite evil. So I'm sure they betray each other in that society as well. But for the most part, they do defend each other, protect each other. And that is why you see corruption will never be eradicated from our politics, because they're brothers and they are going to hold their brothers' backs, right? So whether it's Republican or it's Democrat, or it's the PNM versus the UNC, or the PNP versus the Jamaica Labour Party, all of them are interconnected, left, right, communist versus capitalists. They're all connected. Look at Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein was a 33-degree Freemason, right? And many of the United States presidents are 33-degree Freemason. The last time I checked, I think Obama is a 32-degree Freemason. So they're all people who are connected, they're friends, they're brothers. And you also have the sisterhood of whatever is equivalent of the Freemasonry. So we are not living in a world in which these presidents and prime ministers are actually trying to take care of us and to improve our lot. They're not trying to do that. What they're trying to do is to control the world. And as he suggested, as Professor Veit suggested, under the domination of Lucifer. That is why you're seeing evil being normalized in our society. And people like the Epstein, you think that they're trying to expose him, but what they're trying to do is to normalize what Epstein did. In fact, what Epstein did is the norm in that society. And that is what the guest on Tucker Carlson was actually showing him and trying to unmasked to him, which I'm sure that Tucker Carlson knows that. We can look briefly at some of the other perspectives that this gentleman was giving on Tucker Carlson. If you will, I see that you're not interested again in intellectual thought. You're not interested in systems. You're interested in personalities and gossips. But we'll continue to look at what he's saying in the video here. Let's go back to the screen. And let us look at what he is saying about his spat in Freemasonry. Get back to Tucker Carlson's. I hate these advertisements. Okay. Could I get it off now? Lord. You're not hearing the video. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Those forces that draw upon dark energy, because they can then
Are you not
invoke
hearing the video?
spirit, let's say darker spirits, that hooks into that. If everything is, let's say, like frequency, fear, things that are horrific. Horror films play into the psychology, right? It's like Freddy Krueger, right? He preys upon, he's a dream demon, right? He infects people with fear. And we think about how, like, demons are what? They're scary, right? They're monstrous, they're shadows, they're things that that create fear in us. And then it seems to be like a frequency match, almost.
Do you think that's one of the reasons that Jesus so often tells his disciples not to be afraid?
Yes, that's exactly right. So remember when Jesus casts out the demons, he sends them into the swine.
Yes.
Right? He's like, yeah, get them out, get out of
and they
the human
kill themselves.
vessel, and they go and kill themselves, because a lot of the demonic, I mean, again, there's different frequency of demonic energy. There's madness. A lot of psychosis we have experiencing in this country, I think, connects to it. A lot of it ties into alcohol and drugs. That's, lowering people's frequency. It's one thing to have, a glass or two, but as we know, a lot of alcohol, what does it do? It takes us out of our right mind. In my experience of seeing people get possessed, it's pretty much like seeing someone's, when someone's out of blackout drunk, and we've all seen it. Someone's coked up or out of their mind on with alcohol, and they behave erratically, irrationally. They get aggressive, they get mean, or they start laughing hysterically. And the next day, they may not remember anything. It's exactly what possession is. Because when you see someone get possessed, they just it's like a flip of a switch, and they go from someone you can see, look in the eyes and see what they are, to just checked out. I've seen people screaming. I've seen people laughing maniacally. I've seen just check out, like just staring blankly. But it. You know that this person's not in their right mind.
Yes.
And the key is to try to bring the light back, breathe, bring good energy back, raise the frequency, so they can come back to their selves. So what I would say this battle is between the darkness that, again, feeds on that fear, that lower vibrational, psyche of, like, not being in our right mind, not being in our higher selves, right? Not being connected to our spirit, our higher, to God, basically, right? To spirit that is always available. But the dark side wants to lower that frequency to a place that would be closer to hell, right? What it's always been described as hell, a place of torture, of suffering, pain.
Place of the dead.
Yeah. Well, even worse than death, right? Death is one thing. Go below that, and it's like, that's the level of self-destruction, like you said with the pigs, self-destructiveness. So this is the battle. And again, if the dark side has, waged war on mankind, let's say, right? If we believe, and this is not just Christian tradition. I mean, this is like
it's a lot of story there is.
Yeah, it's a lot of stories around the world have talked about this, that there's something that's waging war on mankind. They want possession of the soul. They want us to check out, to surrender, right? To check out, say, hand over control of the vehicle. And that's
Okay, we're going to look back at, and I'm going to share another video with you from Redacted, which is basically saying the same thing, right? So people are coming out now and people are speaking about the evils that exist in our world, and our politicians are actually connected to these demonic forces. So when we talk about the aliens and stuff like that, that's what they are preparing us for, to interact with evil spirits and demons. Is it on the screen? Let me see if it's on the screen. Yeah, it's not yet. Let me add it to the screen and turn up the volume. Okay, so this is on Redacted with Clayton and his wife.
And it's summer. I love to kick back and have a little snacks. We had a little barbecue.
Let me turn up the volume.
Cracked out some masa chips. By now, everyone has heard of masa chips. And speak to letter agencies who witnessed these dark demonic forces firsthand. So when we talk about dark forces and demons running Washington, D.C., well, now we have the proof of that. That's why today we wanted to invite on Sean Stone. He's a filmmaker, author, actor, media host. His films include Greystone Park, A Century of War, RFK Legacy, and the docuseries The Best Kept Secret. We also wanted to invite on today Kevin Shipp. He's a CIA whistleblower, author of Twilight of the Shadow Government, How Transparency Will Kill the Deep State, to have a deep dive discussion about all of this. Gentlemen, great to see both of you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Good to be on, Clayton. Thank you.
My pleasure. You know, Sean, when we talk about this idea of these dark forces inside the government, these demons maybe that are, you know, controlling things, I think a lot of people maybe speak metaphorically about it, and they can't explain it, so they just kind of label things as demonic or dark, and how could these people be doing this? But I think you've witnessed this firsthand. Is it a leap to go from the metaphorical into the reality that actual dark forces are ruling our country?
It's not a leap. I think you have to kind of baby step people though, into understanding how this could be possible, right? And what is the nature of our reality? Because there's a lot of literature about, you know, the Illuminati, the conspiracy of, you know, a few people, let's say, ruling the world, right? And getting into this idea of bloodline families and, you know, the banking families in particular. And, you know, that kind of stuff, I don't have a lot of insight into. You know, I've read, I've come across occasionally a Rothschild or whatnot. And you've seen the power and influence of these people. Certainly now Epstein is coming out as very much clearly a Rothschild agent, right? And a lot of those emails, we see that he's representing himself, you know, on behalf of the Rothschilds and having a certain relationship with some of the family. So, you know, you look at evidence everywhere, but when it comes to my own experience, I mean, all I can speak to is my own leap into the paranormal realm when I started investigating activities in these haunted mental hospitals, and opening that door basically led me into a whole new reality of understanding that we are living in a multidimensional reality. We are living in a world where there are many beings and entities that are unseen to the naked eye. And, you know, again, it's like step by step, you start to understand this when you've seen someone taken over and, you know, let's say possessed, right? Which I saw in many of our ghost hunting experiences, friends of mine or people that were with us. And you know someone's possessed because in a moment, their demeanor completely changes, right? It's anyone who goes out and gets drunk with people knows how after a few, enough drinks, someone's demeanor changes, right? Their behavior. Cocaine can do the same thing, right? You can see someone's behavior, their eyes, everything switches. With possession, that happens in a second. It's as though they've been overcome by something. Their eyes, their habits, everything in a moment. Some people laugh, some people get very aggressive and violent. Some just, basically like withdraw on themselves and start to panic. But, I saw this many times. And so if I know that possession is feasible, then as I'm sure many people that believe and have faith in the church or in whatever, they experience it, they believe in this, or exorcists experience this. Once you know that, then why is it difficult to assume that people in positions of power could likewise be taken over?
So we'll get back to the interview in a second. But first, I know so many of you are frustrated right now. I see it in the comments. People who are call American Financing today, 866-890-8430.
The occult or satanic rituals, which happen at these high levels of government and corporations, and that's how these things get in.
Can you talk about, you mentioned you witnessed some of these demons in person. Can you talk a little bit more about that, witnessing green stuff flowing from a person's, what was the context of that?
Before I started working with the agency, I had a pretty radical conversion from my shaded and checkered college past. So I had a little prayer group that we had up in Virginia, in McLean, Virginia. And I got a call from one of the guys in the prayer group one night, and he goes, Kevin, I don't want to use their last name for their sake, but he said, I need you to pray for Shelly. And I said, yeah, Rob, what's going on? He said, well, she's got a fever of like 106. And she's saying all these weird things. And I said, well, I mean, is she delirious? And he goes, no, this is something else. Would you come over? And I said, well, can we pray over the phone? He goes, no, you need to come over. So I said, all right, Rob, I'm on my way. So I proceeded to leave. And my wife at the time became upset that she was pregnant. She goes, you can't leave me home alone here. And this factors in later in a really bizarre fashion. You can't leave me home alone when I'm pregnant. And I was like, look, I have to do this, son. So I literally put my hands on her shoulders and said, I got to go. So I went to Rob's house, went up, knocked on the door, and there was complete silence in there. And I had just talked to him about 20 minutes before that. All of a sudden, the door flies open, and it's Rob looking white as a sheet and terrified. And there are witnesses for all this, of course, Rob and Shelley being two of them. And down the hall in the master bedroom, I hear this raspy, man-like voice saying, he doesn't believe in that. And I'm like, whoa. So I remember walking down the hallway, and I've done a lot of study on the power of the name of Jesus over these demonic forces, which is quite remarkable. Anyway, so I go into the master bedroom, and here's Shelley. Turns out she had been in the occult, who I knew, and her hair's all messed up. She's got this growl in her teeth that looked like an animal. And first thing this thing says was, what kind of husband are you to leave your wife home alone when she's pregnant? And I had told no one that. So in this particular, I just kicked in and went up and grabbed her by the face and commanded that thing to come out in the name of Jesus. And as soon as I mentioned that, she screamed, and this green stuff came out her nose all the way down the front of her shirt. And she fell back like someone had punched her on the bed. Anyway, Rob and I started praying for her, and God had set her free, and she opened her eyes and sat up, and the thing was gone, and there was tissues by the bed. So I wiped all the green stuff off. And we started talking like, well, how did this happen? Well, it turns out Shelley had gotten into tarot cards and the occult and things like that, and that thing had gotten in. But it was a dramatic experience of what these things do, how they get into people, and how they manifest themselves, especially when confronted by in my experience, in 3 occasions, the name of Jesus. These things they freak, and a lot of times they'll come out of these people.
That's unbelievable.
Just wanted to bring to your attention the fact that we are living in some very evil times, and our leaders are actually connected to secret societies that are not things that are here to the screen. Let me see if I can get that myself. Let me see, go down here. All right. Whatever it is. Yeah. Let me see if I can get, yeah. Okay, good. I'm back. Okay, so yeah, our leaders are connected to secret societies, and we don't understand even the CIA, the FBI, and many of these secret organizations. They have to practice and do some rituals and interact with demonic forces, the likes of which we don't understand. And that is why we see the CIA and the FBI and the Masonic orders, that they do some very evil things around the world. And people really wonder, how is it that a 12-year-old girl was actually slaughtered, sacrificed? And we wonder where this is coming from. And we're seeing that this is being normalized in our world now, and people don't have a clue of where to connect it. They're saying, where is this coming from? And we cry every day at the death of somebody and the evils done in this world, but it's much more connected than we can imagine. It's not just having to do with happenstance or it is coincidental. These are things that some of these guys have to do because it's a part of their societies. And Stephen Knight is saying it's funny how they should bring this up during the Persian Gulf War and Desert Storm. They went looking for antiquities and digging up things that had no business fooling around with. Correct. And but the thing about it is that if you were on before, we were talking about the Babylonian connection with Freemasonry, and many of these guys think that they should have access to ancient knowledge, because that is the whole purpose of Freemasonry, in which they're telling us that they have knowledge, they have access to ancient knowledge and superior knowledge, and that is why they're trying as much as possible to go into countries like in Iraq, in Iran, and all of these cultures of antiquities, to dig up everything that they have and to keep them, and also to align themselves with the knowledge of ancient civilizations. So that's exactly what they're doing. And Steve Knight is saying again, they have reportedly found Gilgamesh's tomb. They're always trying to find something, that there are about, and, if we read what happened during the Iraq War, we'll understand that during that war, a lot of Iraq's, what should I say now, ancient knowledge, including their libraries, were actually destroyed, and many of their artifacts stolen and sent to Great Britain, sent to the United States. So we can see where they're compiling these ancient information and letting us think that they are the owners and they should have the rights to these sort of knowledge, whether it's Iran, it's Iraq. The problem that we need, something we need to unmask though, how are they connected? How is it that, Iraq president, the former president that was Saddam Hussein, was a 33-degree Freemason? And we know that the presidents of the United States and the world, they are also, some of them, 33-degree Freemasons. So how are they connected? And why do we see this level of warfare? Now, many of you did not understand that after 9/11, and after Iraq was, pronounced as the country that was guilty of what took place in America on 9/11, that the BBC newspaper reported that the United States actually flew all of Saddam Hussein's family outside of Iraq. And people were wondering, so if you thought that Iraq was the enemy and Saddam Hussein, why would the West be considerate of saving his family? But they actually flew them out of Iraq to safety before Iraq was actually bombed. So this is what we come to this point, and we're saying, how is it that they tell us one thing, yet a lot of their actions do not add up? It's not mathing. And this is where we have to now come back to understanding the system. And if we understand systems of power, including Freemasonry and a lot of these secret organizations, we'll understand that, yes, it makes sense. It doesn't make sense on the news. It seems like there's lots of division and that they are warring against each other, but behind the scenes, they are warring against us. And that is what we have to understand. This is the whole purpose of studying the system, understanding this Babylonic system and what is ahead of us under such a brutal and evil system. So, any more questions, any more comments that you have? I think that if you have no more comments, we can end the live. If you have more, I will be willing to answer or to participate in whatever you're asking or statements you are making. So, do we have any more comments? So based on what we have seen, I think that I have done my best to unpack the system for you and to let you know that this is a system and it is not personalities, right? So you must understand what organizations your prime ministers are affiliated with. If not, you're not going to understand their actions. And that is the real deal. That is the honest truth. And that is why people like Clayton Morris and even to a lesser extent Tucker Carlson, they're trying to unmask these things, even though Tucker Carlson is a part of the elites. So you can't trust Tucker Carlson everything that he says because he's also tied up with the elites. Okay? So he's not going to, he's going to reveal so much and no more. And look at how many views his video had. And it was not saying anything great. But the fact of the matter is that that is how the world sees it, and they're going to believe him because they think that the algorithm has pushed his thing across and that it is the knowledge that they should have. But there are persons, if you look at the video of that, that Tucker Carlson actually published, some of them were saying that the so-called ex-Freemason guy, he was saying that you can have light and darkness from the devil. So people said, well, that's when I tuned out because that's not possible. So what is Tucker Carlson's agenda? And the guy who was saying he was ex-Freemason, I don't know if he is ex-Freemason. I think that it is more of an act than it is real. Now, yeah, his father was CIA, right? His father was CIA. And he's closely connected. He wanted to be a part of the CIA too. Tucker Carlson had applied to the CIA, but they rejected him, I understand. Whether or not that is true or it's a game that they're playing, we don't know. But yes, Tucker Carlson's father was an ex-CIA agent, right? So the whole system is interconnected, and we have to be able to unpack it for us to really understand what is really happening in the world. If not, then we are going to be totally in the dark. And that is what they want us to be in the dark. And then they say that they're the light and that we should follow everything that they say because they have the knowledge and they know everything that we do not know, that we don't have access to. So they have this air of superiority, that they stand above us. And that's why your presidents talk to you and do the things that they do without consulting you. Can you be yes, you can be ex-Freemason. There are people who are ex-Freemasons, but they come out and they talk out against the entire system. I think this guy here was sort of tentative. He was behaving as if, first of all, we don't know what was his level, right? What level he left. And normally, you have to be brave to speak out against them. But there are individuals who have left it and, have left it for good. Yeah, but it comes with a price. Some of them even have been unalived, right? So it's not something that you have to be courageous because they're going to hold you accountable. Not only that, demonic spirits also come to, many have also given testimonies in which demonic spirit came and tackled them, right? Combat with them physically, physical combat. Notice the guy was saying, if you listen to the program, that when he decided to join Freemasonry, when he was returning home, he heard voices and they were talking to him, and he said, "Who are you?" And they said, "Well, we know you." And, and they followed him right to his house. And these were not ordinary voices. These were voices of dark spirits. And right now they're trying to tell us that the aliens in the sky and they are about to attack us, and that but they are demonic spirits. And demonic spirits that these people actually dialogue with. So they want to make these things normal for us to be communicating with demonic forces and spirits. Marie saying, good afternoon, Marie. It always amazes me when they speak out against it without being unalived. Right. And that's why I'm saying that I don't know, because the way in which he was actually saying, he didn't give really much information about it. He was just saying that this is something that we have to be concerned about. But his talk seemed to me that he is in the occult, and I don't think he has fully left Freemasonry, but I think he was pretending. Why? Because they get views. They get views when they do that. If you can say you're an ex-Freemason and you're speaking out against it on YouTube, because look at that video, it attracted 2.7 million views. That video alone that Tucker Carlson did with this ex-Freemason attracted, because people think that he's authentic. But many people, I wouldn't say many, but some, I should say, if you read the comments below the video, they're saying that he is not authentic. They realize that he's making some comments which suggests that he's still a part of their cult. So I think that this is something that we have to bear in mind, that sometimes they come and they will speak some truth. That's why we have to listen to some of what they're saying. And one of the things that he mentioned is that we're not living in just a materialistic physical world, as many people think. We're also living in a spiritual world. And the Masons know that because it's a religion. Okay, it's a religion. Illuminati, Freemasonry. And look at how the Freemasons and the Catholics pretend as if they're anti-Freemasonry. But if you look at the history, you realize that the Jesuits were the ones who founded Freemasonry. But the Catholics will say, well, their sort of ideology does not align with ours. But you know why I think they're doing that? Because Freemasonry is more associated with Protestantism, right? So, and the Catholic Church was anti the Protestant Reformation. So many of the Anglicans and our prime ministers in the Caribbean who are more aligned with the Protestant ideology, they are Freemasons. And I think that's the reason why the Vatican suggests that Freemason is their enemy, but it's not. It's just a play. And we've got to look at the deception as the deception is being unfolded right before our eyes. I thought this was going to be an interesting live because I think that it's now time for us to understand the system, because this is system of power. This is not an ordinary organization. It's connected. It's a hierarchy of power, and we must study that so that we can see why are they doing what they're doing? Why does it give them so much happiness to see people die and to see people sacrificed? What would have really encouraged Epstein? And Epstein was tied to Harvard University. Do you know that? Epstein had an office at Harvard University. So these guys were high Freemasons. And many of the professors and the scientists and the economists and also the celebrities are closely aligned with Freemasonry. I did look at some of the celebrities. Let me see if I could look at some here. I saved some who are from the music industry, from the Jay-Z's to the sports personalities. They are all a part of and the Freemasonry. And that is why they are so much tied to our politicians too. And the politicians love them, right? And you really wonder if Jay-Z, not Diddy is also a Freemason. And look at the guy, Diddy and the other guy, the pastor guy, the popular African-American pastor, and he went to Diddy parties, right? But you can see the connection now because they're brothers, right? They are brothers, so they would have gone to each other's party. Black American celebrities, I think I had perhaps, let me see if I'd shown you this already. I have it here, so I'll just probably show it before we go. Let me see if this did we see, did I put this already on the screen? Maybe I did.
Jace, Freemason. P. Diddy, Freemason. Rick Ross, Freemason. LeBron James, Freemason. Look at the ritual that he does before his game. Every game. And people thought like, oh, that's just so cool. But the whole pre-game ritual is demonic. Jay-Z, Freemason. Michael Jordan, Freemason. Busta Rhymes. French Montana, Freemason. Look at this. Then got engaged to some lady, some princess or whatever you want to say. And look at the hand gesture that he is throwing up in that picture. All these people are demonic, bro.
So all these people are Freemasons, right? And when the news media begin to create a furore over what they're doing, it's just to control our attention, to grab our attention for us not to understand the system, and then to begin to blame, Diddy for what he's doing. And then you hear a few days, the pastor that was in the, a part of Diddy's party, and then things just lull down because it's not about unraveling the system. It's not about revealing what they're doing behind the scenes. It's just giving us something to chew on and to entertain us. And we talk about what they're doing and who Diddy is and who this is. And then afterwards, it wades off and everything goes back to normal because they're normalizing these things. They're normalizing these things. And I think that the people of the world are already conditioned to accept this evil society as one which is really what it is, and it is what they want, and they don't care. So it is what we, people get what they want. I think that perhaps we deserve what is happening to some extent because we don't want to really interact with the root causes of these problems. We actually react to what we see on the media, and then because we don't understand the system and where it's coming from, then we decide to side with whoever we decide to side with, and thinking that this person is better than the other when they all are interconnected and belong to one demonic system. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you for share the live and like the live before you go. so that we can get this live out. Okay, thank you so much for joining.